Welcome back to Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio. I'm your host, Robert Burwell, and I'm also the president of the Washington 3%. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of bills that are currently awaiting the governor's signature in Washington State. They both passed the Senate and the House, and these bills are problematic and actually pretty egregious, in my opinion. And so that being said, let's get into it. The first one I'm going to talk about is Senate Bill 5068. Senate Bill 5068 is a bill that will allow DACA recipients and green card holders to be police officers in Washington State. The purpose behind this bill is the fact that Washington currently has a police recruitment problem. They are severely understaffed. All the counties, all the cities, state, everything is understaffed in police officers. We can't get enough police officers. Most of our good officers have quit and left the state to go work in states that are more supportive of police and let them actually do their job. So we have a shortfall in recruiting police officers in Washington. Now, the purpose of this bill, by allowing these DACA and green card holders who are not citizens of the United States, by the way, to apply and become police officers, is they feel this will help them meet their recruiting goals to get more police officers. But they're not addressing the real issue, the real elephant in the room of why we can't get police officers and why we have such a shortage. And the reason behind that is the simple fact that Washington State treats criminals like victims. They refuse to prosecute them. They let them out time and time again. They vilify police officers. They defund the police. They call police officers racist, murderers, you name it. And it's always, when something happens to a criminal, where they get hurt or even killed, it's always the police officer's fault. It's never the fault of the criminal who was doing what they did, and it's just ridiculous. They've tried to prosecute police officers for doing their jobs, and so we've lost many, many officers in this state, many good officers. They've left to go to other states that will let them do their job and treat them with the respect they deserve. Now, the biggest problem I have, and frankly everybody should have, with these DACA recipients and green card holders becoming police officers is the fact that they are not citizens of the United States. When you have a green card, that's basically a permit to work in the United States, to earn a living, and to work on your citizenship. DACA is the same thing. It's basically younger people who came here, who aren't of working age. They're allowed to stay here, finish their schooling, and work on getting their citizenship. But they are not citizens of the United States. And I have a real problem with people who are not citizens of the United States being allowed to arrest citizens of the United States and put them in jail. It makes zero sense. You should have to be a citizen to enforce the laws of our country. You shouldn't be a foreigner foreigner in enforcing laws in our country. That would be like if the UN came in here and started ordering us around and arresting our citizens. I mean, these are foreign individuals. They're not citizens of the United States. When they arrest you, they are taking your rights away. Yes, you have your rights to defense and, to, evident, the way evidence is presented and gathered and so on and so forth. But you lose your right to freedom. When you're arrested, you lose your freedom. Okay? That's taking your rights away. And a foreigner should not be allowed to take your freedom from you. It should be a citizen of the United States who does that. I don't feel we should have foreigners acting in any type of a police capacity or in enforcing laws in this nation. It just makes no sense. Another issue that I have with having these DACA recipients and green card holders applying to the police force is, if you've ever dealt with applying to police force in any state, just like Washington or anywhere, you have to go through a lot of hoops, and you have to pass a very extensive background check. I have a good friend. His son is actually going into the state patrol right now, and he's gone through all the background checks and everything, and they're pretty extensive. And the fact of the matter is that when you are a citizen of the United States and they go to do a background check on you, they can find out every single thing you've done since birth. If you've done something wrong, something bad, they're going to find it, because there's a record here in this country of their entire background. The problem with green card holders and DACA recipients is the majority of these people have spent the majority of their life in another country. So when we do a background check to try to, see if they've ever done anything illegal, bad, whatever, we can only check basically what they've done since they've been here. We can only see what their background has been since they've been here. We don't know what they did before they came here. We can request, that information from their country of origin, but many nations are not going to comply with that. And to be honest, if the person does have a lengthy criminal history, these nations basically are not going to tell us, because if we find out, we'll send it back. And if the person has a criminal history, they don't want it back. But yeah, they're not really very cooperative in sharing that information with us when we try to dig into that. So they're not getting the thorough background check that an American citizen would have. So we really don't know enough about them, I feel, to put them in charge of enforcing our laws and affecting the rights of the citizens in this state. I think it's reckless. I think it's utterly preposterous, and it's not going to solve their recruiting problem. Again, for what they're trying to fix, this completely misses the mark. If they want to recruit police officers in Washington State, they need to fix the problems, not look for other sources outside of our country, outside of our citizenry, to fill the ranks. What they need to do is they need to get rid of these stupid laws that handcuff the police and don't allow them to do their job. They need to quit vilifying the police, trying to prosecute them whenever they do their job. What we need our prosecutors to do is actually prosecute criminals, because half the time they won't even file charges on people. And these are for heinous crimes, and they don't even file charges on them. And if they do manage to file charges on them and go to court, they end up in front of some liberal judge who, if you're lucky, gives them a slap on the wrist and a fine and sends them on their way. The truth of the matter in Washington is, and this is what is so disheartening to our police officers and why they've left, and why we have such a problem with recruiting quality people to become police officers is the fact that the Washington judicial system is just a revolving door for criminals. There's no punishment. They go in, they get slapped on the wrist, they're back out, they do it again, and over and over and over. I mean, we have people who commit murders who in the past year have been arrested 13 times for violent offenses, and then they're shocked that they committed a murder. It's like, well, you keep letting them out on these violent offenses, they're going to continue to commit crimes. And for the officers we have, that's very frustrating. They arrest a guy who should go to jail, they got him cold, and some liberal judge lets him back out. It's like, it's so these officers are like, what the hell am I even doing? Why am I bothering? Not only is it frustrating for them, but it puts their lives in danger when they keep letting these people back out. These violent offenders, they just slap them on the wrist and send them right back out. A lot of them never even do any time other than the few days they were in jail before they got bail. I mean, it's insane. And recruiting non-citizens to be police officers is not going to fix that problem. They need to fix our judicial system and our laws to allow police officers to do their job and to know that they're actually making a difference, because when they actually arrest people, they stay in jail and don't get back out to continually reoffend. That's how you get more people in, to want to be police officers and join the police forces in our state. It's a policy problem, not a people problem. And that's what they need to fix. But this bill, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it violates everything that this nation stands for, to allow foreigners to enforce the laws in our country. That's a sovereignty issue. It's, a violation of our rights as American citizens. We shouldn't have to answer to foreign citizens. And we shouldn't be under fear of arrest by foreign nationals. And, so this is something that needs to be dealt with. We need to tell them this is unacceptable. But, one of the most upsetting parts about this is it did pass the House and the Senate. But one of my biggest issues with this is how it passed the Senate. It passed the Senate unanimously, meaning not only the Democrats, but the Republicans in the Washington State Senate all voted for this. The Republicans voted for this. So what we need to do, this is very, very, very upsetting that the Republicans would actually vote for this. Not sure what the reason was, but the fact of the matter is they all voted for it. All the Republican senators in Washington State voted for this. And for that, they need to face the same thing as the Democrats. If you have, your senator in your district in Washington, you need to contact them, tell them that this is unacceptable. And if they're Republican, you need to tell them that they're going to face the same consequences that the Democrats should face. And that is, you're gone. You will not be reelected for voting for something like this. This is insane. Can't have foreign nationals policing the streets of the United States. Nobody in the world does this. Nobody lets foreigners come in and enforce the laws in their country. This is sheer lunacy. And these Republicans who voted for this, them especially, need to face the consequences. They need to be gone. Just like all the lunatic Democrats we have in the state. They should not be in office. They need to be gone. Hold them accountable. Our second bill that we're going to be talking about is House Bill 1163. This is a permit to purchase law. that they have just passed, and that is going to the governor's desk. So basically, in order to purchase a firearm when this takes effect in Washington State, you will have to obtain a permit to purchase from the Washington State Patrol. And how do you obtain this permit to purchase? You have to take a mandatory certified firearms safety training course, and you have to go through a background check through the Washington State Patrol to obtain a little card that says that you are now allowed to buy a firearm. First things first. To purchase any firearm in the United States, an individual has to pass a background check that goes through the FBI, who has much greater resources than the Washington State Patrol has as far as checking backgrounds and seeing if you are a prohibited person. And the whole point of the background check that you have to go through the FBI is to see if you are somebody who should not be allowed to have a firearm, someone who has committed crimes and lost their right to own firearms. And that's all it is. It's just a check to make sure that you are, yes, still eligible to own a firearm. That's it. But Washington wants to take it a step further. Not only are we, they check in to see if you are a prohibited person, they're actually making you obtain a permit to exercise a constitutional right. This is unconstitutional in every sense of the word. Do the Democrats in Washington State not understand the difference between rights and privileges? There's a difference. A right is something that you have, that is God-given. It's your right as a human being to do certain things. And what our Constitution lays out, when they give us our rights, they're not saying the government's allowing us to do this. They are saying this is your inalienable right. Government cannot touch it. Government cannot infringe upon it. Government cannot take it away. Okay? That's what a right is. A privilege is something like driving a motor vehicle on the roads in your state or in the country. You have no right in the Constitution to drive a vehicle. You have the right to travel freely between the states, wherever you want to go, but you don't have a right to operate a motor vehicle on the roads. That is not spelled out as a right. You have the right to travel, but you don't have the right of how you travel. So that is a privilege. You have to take training, you have to be licensed and jump through all the hoops that they keep imposing more and more on to operate a motor vehicle on the roads in the United States. But it is a privilege which you have to get a permit for, which is your license. That's a privilege. The right to keep and bear arms is a right. And the basis for that right is the natural human right to self-defense. You have a right as a human being, not only in the United States, but anywhere in the world, really, even though they don't recognize it, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to protect your body, your life, your family, your property. You have a right to live. That's what the Second Amendment's for. It guarantees us the ability to keep and bear arms. Arms are more than just firearms. Arms are any implement that you can use to defend your life. It's a right. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be permitted. You can't make people purchase a permit to exercise their right to defend their life and their livelihood. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like saying if you want to stand on a street corner and hold a sign and share your opinion with the world about what you think of what's going on with a certain thing, You have a right. That's freedom of speech. You have a right to exercise freedom of speech. It should not be permitted. Can you imagine if they made you go buy a license to stand on the corner or hold a sign, or made you pay to go into a school board meeting to voice your opinion on what's going on there, or a city council meeting? You have to, have what you're going to say approved before you're allowed to speak. Get it permitted. That's no longer right. They're treating it like a privilege. Same thing with firearms. They're trying to treat it like a privilege. Owning firearms is not a privilege. It is a right that cannot be infringed or impaired in any way. And it definitely cannot be something that they can force you to get a permit for. It's your right. It's the government's hands-off rights. They're not supposed to be able to do anything to affect your rights, and they are. It's completely unconstitutional. It's not going to stand, and it's going to cost us millions of dollars, because we're going to fight it, and it's going to go to court. And of course, we'll lose in Washington because they don't bother following the Constitution here. And same thing in the Ninth Circuit. Ninth Circuit has never once followed the Constitution in anything they've ever ruled. They're an activist. They're an activist panel, just like all the judges in Washington are activist judges. They don't bother with the rules, just like the Democrats. But it'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's going to cost the state millions of your tax dollars to defend this unconstitutional act. And what's really interesting is there's one state already that has the permit to purchase law. That would be Illinois, and their FOID cards, FOID cards, where you have to go through similar steps to attain this little card that says that you have the right to purchase a firearm and to even own a firearm. If you don't have this stupid little card, then they can take your right away, and that's illegal. And on February 11th of this year, 2025, that law was struck down as unconstitutional. Now, of course, the state's appealing it, and it'll go all the way up to the Supreme Court before, because they'll keep appealing it no matter how many times they lose. They're going to keep appealing it, even though it's blatantly unconstitutional. But it's already been ruled unconstitutional. And the Democrats in Washington know this. They know that this has already been ruled unconstitutional, but they're going to pass it anyway, because they don't care in the rule of law. They don't care that they're going to cost us a bunch of money in frivolous lawsuits to fight this blatantly unconstitutional act. They're going to do whatever they want to do because laws and rules don't apply to them. That's how they operate. Law and order is dead in Washington State. It really is. It's all about feelings, not about what's legal, not about what's right and wrong. It's all about feelings and this and that. And, gun laws in general are ridiculous. Time and time again, we keep passing more laws, and violence continues to go up and up and up. Why? Because criminals don't follow laws. You pass all these laws, you make it so citizens who are law-abiding, it's harder for them to be able to defend themselves because of all these gun control laws, which turns them into easy targets, easy victims. I mean, the majority of mass shootings in this country happen in gun-free zones. Why is that? Because they're soft targets. They know there's nobody there who can defend themselves. Gun-free zones didn't fix nothing. They exacerbated the problem. They made it worse. They created soft targets that are easy to access, and they know they can get away with what they're doing, that nobody's going to be able to stand up against them. Gun-free zones are absolutely ridiculous. Gun-free zones, and all gun laws for that matter, only matter to law-abiding citizens, not to people who have evil intent. Guns aren't the problem. It's the people that are the problem. And these stupid laws are just enabling them to do what they do by disarming law-abiding citizens who would be able to stop them from doing what they're going to do. It's insanity. They just, keep doing the same thing over and over again, passing more laws, more laws, more laws, and gun violence gets worse and worse and worse. Because the laws never stop the criminal. Ever. The only thing that stops criminals is people. Other people. Good people. But when good people are left defenseless, they can't stop them. And laws like this are just making more and more defenseless people. Couple that with what we talked about in the first one, which is we don't have enough police officers. They're just making Washington less safe with every one of these stupid laws they pass. And the people here in Washington, you really need to wake up. Pay attention to what's going on. People in Washington vote for these idiots, and then they don't think about anything that's going on until 4 years later or 2 years later when they vote again. And all they base their vote on is what kind of things they say in their speeches, which is all BS. They say all this stuff. They never follow through. And when they get in, they do what they want, and they do their best to take your rights away. And they're slowly creeping. And one thing you people need to remember here in Washington, if they take away our Second Amendment rights, there is nothing to stop them from taking the rest of your rights away. And if you think they're not going to take away your right to free speech and things like that, you need to wake the hell up. They're already doing it. They're silencing you on social media. They're kicking people out of meetings, out of city council meetings and public school meetings because they don't like what they have to say. They're stopping free speech already. And you lose free speech, we lose the right to bear arms. We're going to lose free speech because we have no way to defend our right to free speech and all of our other freedoms. And you're going to end up just being a serf. You're going to have the aristocrats, which are the people in the government, and you're going to have the serfs. You're going to have a communist country where people are not elevated to a higher level. People are all pushed down, held down by the elites. And it all starts with taking your gun rights away. Don't take my word for it. Look at history. Look what happened in Germany in the 1930s when they took their guns away. Look what happened in Russia when they took their guns away. Millions were killed. Anybody who stood up against the communist government was murdered. Millions. The first thing they did, take their guns away. Just like Hitler. Take the guns away. It's happened in every country that has taken their citizens' right to defend themselves away. The citizens are abused, murdered. Dissent is crushed violently. Open a history book. Pay attention. Learn something. We have these rights for a reason. Our forefathers were a heck of a lot smarter than most of the people in this state that vote. Wake up before it's too late. And that's all I have to say. With that, good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you next time here on Behind the Wire.